Aloha, Beth.
Aloha, Cindy.
It's so good to be back with the creators, and I am just thrilled today that we have invited a man who just truly inspires me so much, and especially inspirational as is setting today in Mexico. We have Jeff Oster here. Where did you first meet Jeff, Beth?
Oh gosh, Jeff will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it must have been back around 2011 or 12 through the Grammy and independent music community and working with maybe Fiona Joy Hawkins and Lawrence Blatt might have been the way that we first connected. Oh no, and Ann Lacater, right?
Exactly. That's how I first heard about you. I was in Colorado or something. This is well before 2011. It must have been 5 or 6 or something like that. And you were working with her, and we were talking about people who are just the best in PR in the world. And she talked about you, and here we still are.
We still are, and I'm glad to still be working with Ann too. And you guys did a beautiful, beautiful recording together, flute and flugelhorn for Amazing Grace, I think, right?
Yes. We call it flute and flugel. It's kind of like something you'd order at a deli somewhere. We'd like the flute, a new age deli. The flute and flugel, please. Yes.
Yeah, that was a beautiful recording, and it's still available everywhere. So I hope people will look at that rendition that you guys created.
It's a good one.
So I want to introduce you, Jeff, and brag about you a little bit. Jeff is one of the few trumpet flugelhorn artists working in the ambient, new age, and sometimes even world terrain. His music will take you through chilled and dramatic soundscapes, and you'll be led through by the sound of his silken horn.
Yeah.
Jeff, 5 of your albums, Released, True, Surrender, Next, and Reach, have been voted as ZMR Album of the Year by broadcasters worldwide. And that's huge, because that means you had to be in the top 10 on the charts with those albums each time to even get into Album of the Year and then win it. So congratulations on that. And your music, I know, has been heard on Echoes, Night Tides, Instrumental Saturdays, Sirius XM Spa, Pandora, and many, many more. And you can be found everywhere. Am I right?
In every way. Tune in, go to Google, type in Jeff Oster, Oster, like the blender, and you'll find at least 4 or 5 pages of places to go listen.
You look so beautiful there that I really thought it was one of those filter settings and backgrounds until I saw a bird fly by, Jeff.
Exactly.
And then I went, no, that's definitely live. We're gonna have to talk about you finding your beautiful spot in paradise in Mexico and how it called to you, because I'm sensing this beautiful energy that is this coexistence of you and this lovely spot of paradise, and definitely it's feeding some part of your soul.
Making my soul, actually, So the history of where I'm sitting and the town or the pueblo that I'm in, it's the name of it is San Francisco, which is funny that I sort of leave San Francisco to come to San Francisco. But locally it's called San Pancho. And what it is, it's about an hour north of Puerto Vallarta on the west coast of Mexico. And it's a small town of about 2,000 people. And in the wintertime, there's 300 or 400 in normal times, expats that will come here. And it's kind of like, instead of summer camp, it's winter camp. You see the same people that come back every year. And my history here, I actually was invited here in 2007 by Will Ackerman. Will, as some people know, is an avid surfer. And just south of here is a town called Punta de Mita, which is one of a really good surf break. So he had been coming here for many, many years, and he invited me down. And when I came here back then, I play different trumpets, but I have a little pocket trumpet that I carry with me when I don't, feel like bringing my flugelhorn and my bigger horns. And I brought it with me just because it fits in the backpack. And so when I got here, the feeling of the town is this, it's really quite a town of magic. And it sounds, cliche and all that stuff, but it's the kind of place where you can walk in the morning with nothing planned other than having breakfast, and without anybody else. Just say, I'm going to go have breakfast at Taza Cafe and have my eggs and tacos or whatever, right? And then somebody will come up to you and say, hey, we're going to the beach. Hey, we're going to look at whales. Would you like to go? And so your whole day just unfolds that way. And last year, in the middle of the pandemic, I'll back up to the sort of the history, but last year, as an example of this magic, the place was closed completely. And for a small town to close, it's like it was 25 or 30 years ago, So that there was only one main street where all the restaurants are, and it's totally empty. So I brought my horn in about 8 o'clock at night, and I sat there on some curb, started to play, because it felt like it would be good to do, and add that to the night, And normally here, on any night, there are all kinds of restaurants with different bands outside and people, laughing and talking and dogs, and it's really loud. So it's silent, very silent. So I'm playing, and there's a restaurant in town, I was happening right across the street where I was sitting, and the owner and a couple of her employees were up on the top level of it. I didn't know that, but they came up and they started listening. Then they asked me if I wanted a drink, so they brought me a drink down, and we're talking. And one of the employees is a singer, and he had like lyrics on his phone, so I'm playing along with him these different songs. And so out of nowhere comes walking down the street. There's a gentleman here from Honduras. He's been here for many, many years, and he never wears shoes, and he always has like super loose clothing and long dreadlocks. And his name's Umberto, and he plays guitar, and he leads the open mic. There's an open mic here every week. And him and his girlfriend come walking down the middle of the street, and they just stopped and listened. And I'm said hello. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And out of nowhere, this little kid comes running up with a guitar. Out of nowhere, just hands him the guitar. So we play a couple of songs as he stands there in the street, and I'm sitting there playing. And then the little kid just takes the guitar, runs away into the night. You have no idea where he came from, or he never asked for it. And then Humberto and his wife keep walking down the street. Just like that. Moments like that are like that. So when I first got here, 2007, how many years ago it was, there was a music festival that was here. And the music festival was about 25 gringos, or expats, I shouldn't be pejorative, expats in a little side yard. There are little white chairs, and there was a flat cement slab that was the stage. And I went there with my horn, and there's a gentleman named Chaz Eller, he plays with a band called Kilimanjaro. He's a wonderful keyboard player. He and I would do these sort of ambient, noodly, echoey 15 or 20 minute sets. So fast forward, as we've gone along, it went from 30 people to the plaza in town with a little stage where there's a gazebo with little steps that people would sit on. So that was sort of the bleachers. And then now it's 3 nights in the entire plaza of the town on 2 stages. It's like 3,000 people come, like 1,000 people a night. All the town restaurants have little booths and stuff and sell, and it's ridiculously great. And I played at it every year, except for this is the first year because of the pandemic that they haven't had it. It's always the last weekend of every February.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So it's like the swallows coming back to Capistrano, right? So,
right.
And up until last year, I have a couple of children, and they were in school, and because it's not spring break, the end of February they're in school, and I would only be able to come down here for about a week or week and a half. I'd stay a few days after the festival just to sort of chill out and hang, and because of my performance over all the years here, I met a lot of people because of music's the great introducer, right?
Right.
And plus there's other musicians that are locally here that I meet every year, and we play and stuff. And so last year was the first year I wanted to stay longer because my daughter was in college, and my son was in LA actually. So it was just me. So I made arrangements to stay for a month instead of 2 weeks. So I said, okay, now I'm going to see what it feels like, not for 2 weeks, but now for a month. How does it feel? Because it's small, right? There's not a lot to do, and I tend to you know, I mean, I can chill for a while, but I wasn't quite sure what my limit of chill was, you know. So one of the things that they started to do in this is festival is that they asked townspeople, expats that own homes here, to open their homes for the musicians for the weekend to give them a place to stay, because the festival doesn't pay. There's no musician gets paid. There's no charge to go, so everybody just comes, you know. And it's so this place that I am here. It's a place called Casa Acantilado, is what the name of it, which means sort of house on the cliff house, right? Which clearly, as you can see, it's that. And Dennis and Kim Collard are the couple that own it, and they offered their home to my band, basically. And the way this place is set up is there's a main house where they live. There's a casita that I'm staying in now. There's another casita on the other side of the property, and there's 2 apartments. And he doesn't rent them. They just is for his family, you know, how they made the place. And there's a whole story about how they came to this place. But when my band stayed here, I'm like, man, this is a couple of years ago. I'm like, this is beautiful. So they went home, and then toward the end, I was staying at a different place. I said, Dennis, can I come up for like the last couple of days and just stay in the casita? So he said yes. So last year I said, can I come up for a month and stay? Yes. So I'm here. And then everything gets locked down. This was like March, right? So California, the airlines. So March stretched into April, stretched into May. So I was here from the February, 15th to the end of May. And it's crazy. I mean, you know, you see the view behind me, and it's, here, maybe I can do this. Right? So you got the beach, and you got it's
Wow.
180 degree view.
Right? Oh, beautiful.
Right, and it looks west, so the sun sets here, and so I have I started to do streaming concerts last year, and I didn't bring any setup for that, you know. I mean, I play my mic through all kinds of a pedal board and stuff. I mean, my horn through pedal boards with a wireless mic. So I rigged up this whole thing with my iPad above this laptop, with a little Bluetooth speaker plugged in through my pedal board so I can make my horn sound all echoey, and I play music out of my laptop, and I started to do these sunset concerts. I have them on my YouTube channel, you know, they're up there now. So every sunset, or a lot of sunsets, I would, you know, set it up, and I would just noodle along with some, you know, ambient stuff. And it became a thing. Certainly for the people that lived here, when they went home, you know, they loved it. I mean, they were like, it was a feeling of being back here again, right? And same thing with this year. They're coming down next month. So I've started to play again, and I've upgraded my broadcast system. Todd Boston, who's a guitarist that I play with that you might know, he's a super accomplished engineer, and he's deep into technology, especially as it relates. So he told me he's to, you know, stream with my music uploaded into it, horn going into it, so it sounds very studio like. It's much now. So we're going to do it this year for a while, and so, you know, this town has always circled around music for me. And then as I've been here, it's turned into friendship, and it's turned into love, and it's turned into a lot of things here. It's beautiful, and it's
a wonderful story, you know. And again, here's a soundscape, exactly what we were talking about. We brought up the creative process, because when I do hear you playing, I do feel like you're the sound of the sunset. You're the sound of the ocean. You're the sound of the birds. You're the one that's literally an instrument being played by your beautiful, beautiful landscape. And it's magic. And it's truly magic. Is it different every night for you?
Well, I guess the answer is yes, because the sunset is different every night. The music I play, I don't, it's kind of weird, this whole streaming thing, you know, where when I do a show, there's a set list, right? There's songs, and there's thought to it, right? It's very structured. There's an arc to it intentionally. It's going to start slow. It's going to get a little faster. It's going to, you know, peak. It's going to come back down, give people room to breathe, and then at the very end we're going to bring it up again. Everyone's going to be dancing, and goodbye, right? There's that sort of a thought process that goes into creating a live show, right? But this is I just pick these 20-minute or 30-minute jams that I've done in the past. Like one is an hour-long show on WXPN in Philadelphia, the Stars End, where I played a show there with Michael Manring, who's an amazing bass player, and Carl Weingarten, who just has released a new album, a guitarist. And we have a trio called Blue Eternity. And there's in Philadelphia, there's a concert series called The Gathering concert series that they've done for many, many years, and it's at a church, and it's at night, and people lay down on their pillows, and it's really beautiful, and it's an hour or two of just chill stuff. And there's like Jeff Pierce and all the real well-known ambient folks play there. So we played there one year, and what they do with that is the show ends at about 11:30 or midnight. This radio station, WXPN in Stars End, the show starts at I think it's like 2 in the morning, and it goes from 2 until 5. So they get the bands that play at the gatherings to come over to the radio station and play for a full hour nonstop of ambient, quiet zone stuff, really 2 to 3 a.m. music, right? So I have a recording of that. So I bring that down here, and that plays, and then I play over it. And I've got various things I've done with Tom Eaton, the guitarist that I work with and working on a new album with, and he's a great producer and performer. And Vin Downs, who's another great acoustic guitarist, where I've got these tracks that I'll just play along with. So that's different every time because it's all improv. And depending upon the mood and depending on what flies by, what the weather's like, sometimes I'll stop right when the sun goes down. Most of the times I'll turn around and play taps right when the sun goes in, and then sometimes I'll go late into the night, and I'll stay in a couple, depending on how much mezcal I bring along with the show, I'll just keep going. I read some poetry sometimes, and I have a little portable laser thing that does all the little starry lasers. I'll bring that out and shine it so it looks like everything's all sparkly. And then last year, toward the end, one of the cool things about being here all this time is that it was really quite powerful noticing the season, noticing how trees that were bare when I got here 3 months later had leafed out, noticing how, because up here there's no airplanes, there's no sirens, there's none of that. All there is the constant waves and birds, really. And I it's so slow that I actually noticed the change, like a new bird would appear, because this is quite a migratory like highway for birds, right? So as it went from February to March to April to May, new birds would come, and I would hear them, right? And it's like you'd literally stop and go outside to try to see what one's that, right? And also, the stars change at night. So what started to happen toward the end was Venus would set just like right behind me. Every night, you can't really see it very well on like an iPad or something like that. But Venus would be this, white dot and would sort of sink lower. So I would talk about Venus while we're playing, and look, here's joining us tonight, and it's great. I mean, so the idea of opening up creatively, is this place asks for that. It invites that. It invites that.
And Jeff, sorry, Cindy. Jeff, I know that you had the monkeys keeping you company too. Are they monkeys? What are they?
They're cotamundis. A cotamundi is, it's like a cross between a raccoon and a monkey. Has a really long tail like a monkey, but it's not a prehensile tail. They're one. As a matter of fact, one walked by just a little while ago up onto the porch. The other night I was watching the sunset sitting here, and there's like these stairs that come up from the cliff and stuff. Two of them walking up. And they look at you. They don't care. They just look at you and keep walking. It's the coolest thing. They're very chill, and they're fearless. I mean, they're not mean, but like when I first saw one last year, I was freaked out because like I have a sliding glass window or a door, and it's right outside on the porch, and I'm like, dude, what are you? Like, knock on the window. And instead of like freaking out and running away, it goes, just look, what? Are you going to feed me? You're like, wow. So now they just chill. They'll walk right by you. Sometimes at night I'm playing, they'll just amble through the porch. Yeah, so they're. I thought they were gone because they usually at sunset there's this tree over here that's got these little beans that hang from it that they come up and eat, and I haven't seen them yet, but clearly they're here, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice to connect with them.
So does what the word that comes to me as you're talking about this, Jeff, is expansiveness. I'm getting the
Yes.
sense of expansiveness, and I have to wonder, when you for 3 months expanded like this and got in tune with that whole breadth of the ocean, the sky, the animals, the birds, what's it like for you going back to San Francisco, the Bay Area?
Yeah, right. Well, all right. I'm going to try not to cry. So it's super hard to leave here. Okay. And I know that I've spent a long time in my life, I'm 63, about to be 64, to create, manifest a place like this for me. And I've always, in my whole life, been attracted to, like, Big Sur is my other spot, right? I have a place in Vermont and the Falls, another spot, right? And I'm as comfortable in Times Square, in New York. I mean, I know how to do that, and I love that. But there are a few places in the world that make you, that make me sigh. They make me breathe deep, involuntarily, just here, right? So when I go back to the Bay Area, I have, and it's very different now. This last year, where it's a very small life now, in that I have a house that I'm in, and I go to my office by myself, and I come back to my house by myself. I get groceries delivered, and it's lovely. I mean, Alameda, California is a beautiful little island off the coast of Oakland, and I live in a place that's on the second floor with a big bay window and trees that I can look at, and an oak tree out of my kitchen window where I see birds and squirrels. So it's not, I'm not like in, like I lived in Hollywood, California, and where you see a wall outside your window and stuff. It's not that now, but it just underlines for me how I want to paint my life now. I'm grateful that music allows me. I can go anywhere in the world, and if I have my horn, I might not even be able to speak the language, and I can play, and I can immediately make connection. Other musicians, other people get free beer, get money. People give you some tips or whatever. There's all that, right? It's the passport, right? It's that unspoken, but yet says everything passport. That's what music is, right? So I've been in enough places in the world to know where I want to be if I can be. And I'm at the point now, I have another job, my day job. I'm a financial planner that's given me the financial freedom to make choice. So for me to be here in the winter and Vermont in the fall and, who knows, Canada in the summer, I don't know, someplace it might be, I don't even know, I don't think I'm going to retire in that part of the year, after here to the fall in the Bay Area, because it's just so expensive. It's just a lot of money, and I can afford a house, but I don't want to buy a condo for $800,000. It's silly.
Right.
I mean, it's beautiful there, but it's a little silly. So it's jarring in some way. One of the things there's two things I noticed when I came back to the Bay Area from here after 3 months here. And it's stuff that you would never think about. One was, this place is a cobblestone streets almost everywhere. And in a typical small Mexico town, it's not like there's the Department of Water and Power and Infrastructure that smooths all the little stones out. So it's constantly in the car, and all the time. You can't really go fast. You're there. So to get on a smooth highway, you fully notice that it's like, wow. It's just, and you never really notice it, but the differential between so perfectly smooth and then going super fast, like on the freeway in LA or in the Bay Area. I mean, I spent 3-4 months not going any faster than 20 miles an hour, right? Even the highway here is a 2-lane highway that that trucks get on that go 5 miles an hour up a hill. So you're not, and except for the maniacs that pass you on the uphill unseen corners, they'll just do it anyway. You just go slow there. So the speed, the literal speed, and also the smoothness of it was it's quite noticing. Never mind the airplanes and the sirens and all that. So it's quite different. It's quite different. And I think my music also sort of gets affected by that.
Yeah, Jeff, I wanted to ask you, so we need to talk about the creative process that went into your new album. And first, though, I wanted to ask you if any of the music from last year, from this time in Mexico, has led to songs on that new album. Did you compose anything in your mind down there or in actuality? And is any of that represented on the new?
All right. So that's a multi-level question.
Yes.
So the new album is called Brothers. It's going to come out in July is my target for releasing that. And it's with me and Will Ackerman, the guitarist and founder of Windham Hill, and Tom Eaton, the keyboard piano player and multi-instrumentalist. So it's only the three of us. We're the only musicians on the album. Okay? So that's the set, and it's all, there's no drums, there's no percussion, there's no beats. It's just horn, guitar, some piano, bass, and just the three of us. So, and all the songs are like that. It's probably one of the most sparse albums in terms of its acoustic feeling that I've ever played on. So that's what's coming. Now, how it came about in terms of the creative process. I've been uninspired over the last 2 years. This is not, even though I've had all the time to sit in front of a Pro Tools system or a GarageBand system and create, I have been wholly uninspired to do that. It's the strangest, almost most opposite reaction to the time. And I think part of it is because I normally live a very, very busy life. I'm very, very active. And I live in a town that's active. And even here, right? But it's very busy. And music, and especially the kind of music that I create, is an escape from that. It's an escape where I slow down by playing the music. And I'm inspired to slow down. I have a need to slow down because I'm surrounded by so much action, right? So much, movement. Well, this last, year and a half of pandemic and of lockdown and of an actual slowing down of the world, I'm not so distracted anymore. My day is as slow as the music that I would normally create, right? And it always comes from inspiration. And if the inspiration is I need to be calm, then that's where the inspiration comes. Well, if I'm already calm in a way, and I'm also ungrounded. There's nothing grounding about this. It's all different. You sort of almost sublimate the idea that you're seeing everybody walk around you with a mask on, right? Like it becomes normal, but it's so not normal. And there's some voice deep down that's saying, "What the heck is this about?" Really, you can't pretend that it's normal because it's not. It's just not. So it hasn't been an environment for me that has led to creation, right? So Beth, to your answer, other than the live stuff that I recorded and posted on my YouTube page and like Sunset Concert Series or whatever, none of that became an album. And I never took any of that and used it it's all improv anyway. So unless I wrote it down or tried to recreate it, it's not it wouldn't have worked that way anyway. Right? So I go to Vermont this past fall, from September, October, November. And I'm by myself again there, right? I have a cabin there. and I brought my horn because Will Ackerman has his studio there, and I get invited to be I'm sort of his house flugelhorn player. So if he produces different artists and he wants to add a horn, if I'm there, or even if I'm not, but if I'm there, it's much easier for me just to go down and play. And he has this thing all set up socially distanced now, where he had a microphone drop down underneath the studio in a wood shop that he's got there, has headphones and a little counter and a talkback microphone. And Tom's in the control room, Tom Eaton, who's his main engineer, and then I was out in the studio recording.
So this is a setup so you can safely be
Correct.
Together, be producing during COVID, right?
Correct, exactly. So people are comfortable. No one goes in the control room. The artist comes in a different hallway and goes into the tracking room, and no one ever hangs, right? I talked to Will when I was up there across the garage, driveway, with a mask on, all that stuff. So I'm up there, and Tom Eaton and I have been talking about, because I released my last album, Reach, in 2018. So it's been a couple years now, almost 3. And I had actually finished that album. I released it in 2018. I had finished it in about 2016. It took me almost 2 years to actually have it come out. So Tom and I have been talking, and I'll get deep into how I create. Most of my albums up until this one, well, actually the Reach, and then the one that I'm brothers, right? I would sit in front of my GarageBand, and I'd go to the internet and I'd find public domain 8-bar loops of piano or of bass or of drums. And I would listen to all of them. There's different websites you can go where there's collections of them based on genre. So I'll go listen to all the ambient piano, 8-bar piano loops that people post up to these sites for other people to make songs out of, basically. And there's no cost. Sometimes you do a little bit of credit on the album or something like that. So I've done this for my whole career. I mean, starting in 2003, that's how I started to make music. I would collect these things, and I'd find a piano loop that I like, and I'd upload it into my little system, and it would play, and I'd loop it, so it'd go over and over and over again. And I'd go back to the website, and I'd go, okay, now let me listen to bass parts. And I'd play the bass part, uploaded on there against what I had saved and listening to. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, and then all of a sudden, boom, this is perfect. So I'll take the bass part and slide it in. So now it's a bass part and a piano part. And I would build up these soundscapes this way. And then I would sit there with my horn or just drive around listening to the tracks play. And then I would start, a melody would come of some kind, riding my bike, having a drink or something like that. And so I would make these songs, demos at my place, make a whole album that way. And then I will go to a real studio and say, okay, now here's a bass loop, here's a guitar loop, here are my trumpet parts, right? There's all this stuff. Now Will, who do you think would be a good bass player for this music? T-Bone Walk would be a great bass player. T-Bone comes in, and using it as a guide, he'll play bass, record the bass, and we'll get rid of the loop. Same thing with the keyboard, a lot of times the drum, and maybe we'll keep a little bit. So the songs would morph from these demos to a finished product that I then release. All right. So I did that on every one of my albums until Reach. That's how the process was done. On Reach, I started to do the same thing with a really fine piano player named Ruslan Sirota. Ruslan's a Grammy-winning pianist, plays with Stanley Clarke, amazing jazz pianist, but he's also a really fine producer. Mm-hmm. And he started to put together these little tracks for me. And I met him through a Kickstarter where he said, if you give me money for my Kickstarter, I'll make a song for you. So I paid that. I bought that. He sends me the song. I add horn, and it wasn't with the idea of adding horn, but I added horn to it. He's like, wow, maybe we got a little something here. So then he started sending me these tracks, and I'd sit, this was like a couple years ago, down here actually, and I would sit there and play along with them. As a matter of fact, I have quite a few of them on my broadcasting system here now that I'm going to play over, right? So I have maybe 8 or 9 of these that he would send me, right? And we're doing all this, and I'm trying to come up with stuff. And he goes, I have another idea. What's the other idea? He goes, I think we need to go to a studio in LA. I'm going to bring in 5 musicians that I know can do this. I want you to make a playlist for me of songs you like. So he and I sat with a Spotify playlist. And we decided what vibes we wanted, brought that playlist to the studio with these 5 musicians. And again, the day started with nothing. We play the song, they'd listen to it, they'd all go out into the studio. The drummer, Tamir Barzilay, bass player Benjamin J. Shepard, Robin Ghosh, the guitarist, Pete Corpola, percussionist, and Ruslan was on a keyboard in the control room. So they're all hooked in with their headphones. They're all they just jam the vibe that we had just listened to or something like it. They're jamming, and then Ruslan's talking to them. Okay, now go to just guitar and me. And then the guys are good enough that they would stop and it'd be just guitar and piano. Okay, now go to A minor. Now bring in the bass. He would just sort of talk it. So we did in one day, we made 10 songs like that. Different songs, all just really improv, but in the studio, live recorded improv, like records used to be made, like Miles Davis used to make, a Kind of Blue or that kind of thing. Nothing written. So he took that and he went away for 2 months, and him and his mixing engineer edited it into song structures. So we ended up with 8 of them, no, 10 of them. So 2 months later, I came down and he would play one, and I just played over it, anything, and then the whole record over the whole thing, and then let's do another take. Now on this part, play super high and crazy, and whatever, just making stuff, the whole thing, not one written note, the whole thing, or I'd land on a phrase that I just came across of like a pattern. He'd go, okay, you do that pattern again. He goes, now play this harmony to that pattern, right? So I did 2 days of horn sessions like that, and then he mixed the whole thing together, and that's Reach. So it's in essence almost live, right? All right. So all of my albums up until now are pretty big. There's drums, and I've got Bernard Purdy and Chuck Rainey, the rhythm section from Steely Dan and Aretha Franklin, and I've had T-Bone Wolk, and I've had Happy Rhodes, this amazing vocalist on stuff, and Keith Carlock, Steely Dan's current drummer, on a different album. All these different, and to me it's like music fantasy camp. It's one of the advantages of my position now, mostly because of my job, my day job, where I can afford this. I can dream what I want, who I want on the album, and who I've always wanted to play with, who I've always respected. Will Ackerman's a perfect example of that, right? And I'll just ask, hi, I'm a trumpet player. I have this new album. Would you play on my album? Can I send you some songs? And most of them will say yes. There's always a price, but they'll say yes, most of them, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I have Nile Rodgers on one of my albums. It happened because he knew, and the engineer, when I was recording Bernard Purdy and Chuck Rainey, the trumpet player that owns the studio is Nile's music director. So, hey, do you think Nile might play? Yes. Great. So like that, right? So all that has come together in these different ways. Tom Eaton and I'm going to go onto brothers now. Tom Eaton and I have talked for the longest time. He goes, you always start your songs with loops, and then you add the horn. He goes, I think really what you should do is you should start an album with the horn. Just play the horn, and then we can build a song around it. It was very uncomfortable for me, because I know how to, because what am I making a melody out of, right? How do I do that? So this a couple years we've been talking about this, and he'll say it to me, and it makes perfect sense, and I never do it. Just never. I can't think of how can I make 8 songs or 10 songs like that. So I'm in Vermont this time. I just done a session, and I was saying, Tom, we had the same discussion yet. And then I had this inspiration, or I guess that's what it is, where I first heard Will Ackerman in 1978. I was living in Eugene, Oregon, Somebody turned me on to his music. I had just moved there from Miami. It was right before I had moved to LA to become the next Herb Alpert or whatever. Right? And for years, when I moved to LA, I would play Will's songs, his albums, and sit in my house and play along with them for years, from 1979 until 2003, basically. So in 2003, I started to do this little demo process that I just described with the loops and everything like that. And back then, there was a website called mp3.com where you could make an artist website, and they had charts, had global reach. And I started to be number one on the ambient charts with these 4 songs that I had uploaded there. This was in 2001, 2002. And I'm working for Aon Corporation, a big Fortune 250 company, wearing my suit, sitting in my cube in downtown Los Angeles, right? Every day. I had a family by then. And I had a 1-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old boy. And I'm at my cube, and I'd seen this stuff with these songs. And, and I told myself for many, many years that when I had enough money, I would hire the people I want to hire to make the music I want to hire. Because I did top 40 and weddings and bar mitzvahs in LA from 1979 until 1987 when I became a financial planner. Because I got tired of making $10,000 a year and playing Proud Mary to 10 people with their backs to me on Tuesday night. For some club owner that makes you do that, right? And the only way out of it is to do original music. It's the only way. And in LA, if you have a working band of any kind, and you try to say to them, hey, let's get together, guys, and make an album. And they're like, where's the next $250 weekly gig? Where's the next club gig, right? So I said to myself, I'm going to save up enough money to do that. So I did, and it took me from 1987 until 2003. And I'm sitting in my cube, and I send Will Ackerman an email. I first went to Wyndham Hill's website thinking, well, maybe I could send him this demo, these 4 songs that are so popular on mp3.com. And I found out that Wyndham Hill in 2003 was not really a record label anymore, except for maybe Jim Brickman. They were just reissuing stuff. Right. But Will's website was there. So I go to Will's website, and it's like, Will is interested in producing your music. He still says that, So I sent him an email. Hi, I'm Jeff Oster. Your music, I'm a trumpet player in the Bay Area. Your music has been the soundtrack of my life for decades. And I always told myself what I just said. I always told myself that when I was ready to do it and I had music, that I would reach out to somebody that I respected to do that. Are you interested in helping me? What are you looking? He writes back, and 5 minutes later, I get an email back. So understand, I'm a total fanboy. To see Will Ackerman's name in my inbox, I'm like, oh my God, it's Will Ackerman, right?
I bet.
And right. And his question is, what are you looking for in having me produce your music? So I tell him, I always said the whole story I just said about, when I finally could do it, I wanted to do it. I have these songs that are really popular. So he writes back, so how can I help? And I'd already asked him 3 times, can you do what is he asking me? So I just directly answered, I want you to produce these 4 songs. I want to make see what happens. So he said yes. And it turns out, I have a cabin in Vermont that I bought in 1994. And the cabin turns out to be 45 minutes north of Will's studio in Vermont. So in 2003, that summer, I was going there. I said, Will, can I come by? It just so happens my cabin is 45 minutes north of your studio and your home there in Vermont. Yeah, you can come by. So it's like going to Mecca, right? It's like driving up the road. If you've ever been there, it's like he's got 200 acres there, and he built every single stick of wood in the studio in his house himself, because in addition to an amazing guitarist, he's a ridiculously fabulous carpenter, woodworker, right? Drive up the hill, he's got a little stone thing with the number of the street on it, and pull into this, like, it's like, lights should have gone up and stuff like that. Yeah, like, there need to be some soundtrack just for that, right? So we sit on the porch that day, have a cup of iced tea, and talk about how awful the music business was. How awful the music business was. and how it's hard and all that stuff. And I left him a CD with the four songs that I had wanted him to listen to. Drove back to Boston, got on a plane. When I got to Boston, I look at my email and it's like, he goes, "Your stuff is actually good." That's what he wrote. "Your stuff is actually good. Have you ever heard of Eric Satie? You know, I can hear a violin on this one part. I can hear a cello, but don't listen to anybody else. I don't want it to change your sensibility. Whatever you're doing yourself is good." So fast forward to that winter, I came back and we made an EP, a 4-song EP called At Last. That was my first release. And the reason it was called At Last, if you look at the cover of it, it's a turtle walking towards a flugelhorn. They're next to each other. And, you know, it represented to me all the time it had taken for me to actually be able to release my own music as an album into the world. Okay. And then those 4 songs went to and on that album, it took me a lot of courage to do this. When I was started to work with Will, I was completely intimidated. Right? It was like, oh my God, it's Ackerman, you know? And so we're in this, and then as we went on, I'm starting to feel like, no, wait a minute. I have a voice here too. It's my music. And I started to just get a little bit more assertive, you know, in my musical choices. And Will is he's very intuitive. And if he doesn't believe, and he's very straightforward. If he agrees, he'll agree. If he doesn't, you should hear some of the sessions. He go, "You suck. Do that again. You're awful. You know, that was terrible. When are you going to play music?" You know, stuff like that, right? And instead of like going, "Yeah," now I'm like, "Oh, shut up. I'm going to do it again." You know, until finally, like there's certain songs where the last three notes in a song I played 25 times, the same 3 notes, before he said that's it. And I'd have been happy with the second one, you know. So at the end of the session, or toward the end of the session, I said, I want to ask him, will you play a song with me? Can you and I, because I spent all these years doing that, will you do that? So he comes down, and Will is kind of shy. He's not, "Oh yeah, let's do it." There has to be a mood and a moment or whatever. So he comes down one day with this guitar. It's called a parlor guitar. It's a very small guitar, very high pitched. It has like bell tones almost. That's a guitar. And he sat on the steps outside the studio and started playing. And I stood in front of him, and I'm like, "Yeah, that pattern. Yeah, that pattern." Got up, went into the studio, recorded him. He leaves. I sit down on the floor of the studio with my horn, listening to this, and I make a horn part of it, which we recorded. And I drove home that night crying, just crying. Oh my God, here's this dream come true song. And it's called At Last, which is what I named it, right? And it's on released. It's on my first full album, right? And so the reason I'm telling you that background is that there are, I think, 4 songs, not including Flow. There are 4 songs like that on my albums. There's 2 on Released. There's one on True. There's one on Next, where basically it's me and him. And he's turned into one of my closest friends. He invited me to Mexico. You know, this place is because of him, really. And he doesn't come here anymore. It's too busy for him now, right? He doesn't even come. But I'm locked in here, right? You know? And so in Vermont this last year, I said to Tom, I said, I want to make an album with just only me and Will's songs. You can produce it, you know, you can record us. And so we started talking about that, and then I just asked Will. I said, "Will," I want to make an album now with just you and me. And Will is very particular. He hasn't released an album in a long time, and he's working on a new one for himself now. And he's never done this. Flow is as close as he's ever come to being in any kind of a group setting. So he said yes. So I'm like, and I had no songs. I had no plan to make any album in Vermont at all, other than bringing my horns. No, not one note. Call up Tom. He said yes. Now what? So we had this conversation about Will and how he works. And what Will normally will do is that if you know anything about the way he plays the guitar, he uses what's called open tuning. He changes the notes of the guitar strings randomly until he finds a mixture of notes that he likes, and then he starts noodling around till he finds a melody or till he finds a pattern. So when you play a concert with that guy where he's playing a lot of his songs, there are 7 guitars lined up backstage because the next one has to get tuned because it's totally different tuning. And he does it on purpose to be lost, to be completely in sort of a space that's not predictable.
Yeah,
Right?
I remember.
Right?
I remember that about Carnegie Hall, Jeff, when we were there with Flo.
Right.
And I caught Will back in that hallway, and I took a shot of him at the end with all the guitars lined up
Exactly.
down this long hallway. And to me, it's such an iconic shot. And I was so proud to find him there, and he cooperated with me for that shot. And it was
Totally
glorious. It says it all.
And he always has to have another guitarist with him that knows who he is and knows the tunings. Because when he's on stage playing one, that guitarist has to be off retuning the other one if he's going to use the same guitar the next time. So another thing about Will is that he will fall in love, deeply in love, with the latest song he's working on. This is the best chord I've ever played in my life. Ever. Every time he'll say the same thing, right? So Tom says, Jack, because what I was going to do was have Will make 8 or 9 songs himself that I would play along with. And Tom says, well, Jeff, if you do that, there's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to have them. Will might want them. And I'm like, good point. Well, then how do we do this? Because I have an idea. So I drove down to Tom's studio in Newburyport, north of Boston, where he is. And it was the most amazing moment. Tom is a really, really good musician. He's very, very well learned. He knows music. He knows chords. I don't know chords. I'm a melody guy, right? I should know chords, but I'm woefully uneducated that way. So we get there, and the first thing he says to me, he goes, Jeff. I said, what, Tom? And I'm scared. I mean, I'm scared financially because it's not cheap to go into a studio and for me to show up with nothing and with only 2 days of recording scheduled. And, we're going to go back to Vermont next week, and we booked the whole week, and we're going to make an album of the songs that we haven't even made yet, right? I'm like, I've never done this before. So the first thing Tom says to me is, okay, I want you to walk across the parking lot. What? He goes, I want you to walk, and I'm going to get the tempo of how you walk through the world. No one's ever done that before. So I walk, and he's got his little tempo thing on his phone. It's like whatever, 96, whatever the number is. Okay. He goes, now let's go inside. Okay. So he's got the studio all set up for the horn playing and stuff. Sit down. He goes, now play a note. Play a note that you really love. B flat, I'm C. When I played, I don't even remember the note. Just play it. It was now. Play a harmony to it. Landed on one that I liked, played it. Now play another harmony and another harmony. So he built a chord. And it was some, whatever, minor 7th chord, or, who knew? But that's sort of like my natural place in terms of how I hear harmony as that comes from me. So we did this exercise, the 2 exercises. Then we sit in this control room. He goes, what Will Ackerman songs did you used to play to? Pick one. And so we're playing it. And he sits there and doesn't do the same thing, but he has his piano set up to a sound that sounded like Will's guitar. And he started playing piano parts that sound like the parts that Will would play. We built 6 songs this way, where he made the guitar parts on the piano, basically, that we could hear Will doing that. Not exactly that, but that. And then I went out and we recorded really the final horn parts for all 6 of those songs there. So the next week we show up, and this is like fraught with anxiety and oh my God. Because one of the things about working with Will and Flo, my band Flo that he was a part of, is that we had parts that we would make Will have to play. And Will is, unless it's his stuff, you can't make Will do anything. But it's very difficult to make him play parts because that's not how he works. So we show up at the studio, and here comes Will on Monday with his guitar. We picked the first song, and I had listened to all 6 of them. This is the one that sounds mostly like Will. Play it. And he's listening to it. He takes his guitar, and it was the most fascinating thing, amazing, where it's playing, and he just starts plucking the strings, he's tuning, and stops, and does another one, till the strings are in tune with this pattern that's playing, the piano pattern. And then he starts playing. We'll record all this stuff. And some of the stuff he got close to sounding like the piano part, but other stuff he just started doing his way of it. And we did Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we did 6 songs. No, Monday and Tuesday we did the first 6 songs, replacing the things with his guitar parts. And then on Thursday and Friday, he brought in 2 of his own, which were more traditionally, Will had done the guitar parts, and then on Friday I did the horn parts for those 2. So what we left there with was a bunch of guitar that was similar to what Tom had done. My horn parts were still the same. The new horn parts I had done with the 2 new Will songs. And so now over the last couple of months, Tom has taken that back to Newburyport, and he's added bass, he's added piano, he's added keyboard, and some electric guitar, a little bit, ambient stuff, to fill in the blank, color it with Tom's colors. And as a part of that process, I'm almost done talking. You got me going on the whole thing. You can edit this all later. As Tom, when Will and I finished the recording session together, and remember I said brothers was me and Will. Tom's like, well, what do you want me to do on this? Well, because he recorded it, obviously, right? Well, I want you to play guitar, and, add some stuff to it. Well, how much do you want me to add? You want me, or do you want me just to be the engineer and you're going to hire other people to do it? Well, we want you. So then it became, you're one of the brothers. So now it's the 3 of us are the brothers. Will Ackerman, Jeff Oster, Tom Eaton. And so he's in the process right now of finishing adding his parts. Then we're going to mix it. Then we're going to play it for Will because he hasn't heard any of this yet. So that's a whole other thing. Lift the curtain, And they're...
What a beautiful painting you've created with your description. I heard you mention earlier about painting your life, and this is a beautiful painting of your creation that it's so right on that I actually felt like I was there with you in the creation by the way you expressed it. It was
nice.
It was beautiful. And yes, this is just truly the creative process, right, Beth? This is the creative process.
Mine, certainly.
Well, it's incredible, Jeff. I didn't expect that. So I'm amazed. Like, Cindy, this is a scoop.
Yeah.
This is a major scoop that the world is going to love hearing about, And Jeff, I think what we love about this show is that when we explore creative process with people, we see not only how it evolves for them, but we also learn new ways to think about our own creative process. And so seeing how you've transformed, throughout your career is really inspiring.
Thank you. And it's, to end the brothers to summarize the brothers thing, I wanted to memorialize and capture forever in a record my relationship with Will.
Yeah, I know there's a great love there between you guys as friends, and I've been, like I said, honored to be along with you all on Flow as well, and just enjoy seeing the enjoyment. I mean, I'm always there with my camera kind of capturing things, but
Right.
It's almost like that process is about letting the love come through the camera. And there are still so many behind the scenes pictures and things I don't think the world has seen, but
Right.
it's really been a true love story between all of you, but especially the two of you and all of your travels, you know, and adventures. So thank you for letting us in on a little bit of it.
I also feel like it's a dream that's come true. I mean, you know, when you cover what you've covered is the span of years that you've been from your beginning stages, and how you've actually been able through a lot of time and dedication to be able to take what your original seed thought was and manifest it to the point where you were able to create from, it sounds like about 20 years of work to now what you're able to create at this point, which is so beautiful.
It's funny that you say dream come true, because that's, for the longest time, I've always described my Songs with Will as my dream come true series of songs. That's what it is, you know. And the nature of the music, when you hear it, it to me is perfect for it's what the world, it will really add something to the world, I think. It's the beauty and the peace of what it is, I think. Just the heartfelt tones of it, I think will arrive at just the right time.
Yeah, I cannot wait to hear it. And we're aiming for July, right?
We are.
Okay.
It will happen by then.
And right now we're on the eve of Valentine's Day, which is why we're wearing our red sparkles. But you didn't see this, Jeff, but some birds flew behind you earlier in a V formation to send the love.
Well, for Valentine's. Exactly.
It is all about, and there's that love again. That love is so present in this creative process, because you know what? Take that amount of time out of your life, create what you wanted and dreamed of, takes a lot of love and enduring love, because a lot of people would at some point going, well, you know, maybe this isn't making sense, but you know, it made sense, you know, and here you have a beautiful new release, Brothers, coming out. I can't wait to hear it now. I'm very, very, very excited about this process of what you did to create this dream come true. And you know, I'm just thrilled to kind of feel like I'm there with you in your paradise that you've shared so beautifully with that background, and been able to get a sense of it. Makes me want to go down there and chill in the different waters down there in Mexico from here on Maui. And yeah, it might be just something other people see that they might want to as well. I know, because you've conveyed that beautiful energy field so well too of the place you're at. So I thank you for your time and your storytelling, and sharing your creative process.
Thank you for asking. There's more to come. God willing, more to come.
Thank you, Jeff. And please let us know. Let us know if the festival comes back, you know, for next year, and we'll help spread the word on that. It sounds like even more fun than what we've done in New Orleans over the years, wandering those streets together. So this would be a blast.
It would be a different street to wander, and I'd love to see you here. It'd be the best. Right. You'd love it.
Yes. Well, a big aloha from here.
I love Maui.
And love to you, and you know, hasta luego. You know.
Yes. Gracias, señora.
Until next time, and our love to you, Beth, and your beautiful, beautiful ability to pull this all together for the creators.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Jeff. Love you guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Love you. Bye.
Bye.